Is artificial intelligence going to replace us? Some think there's a genuine risk of that. It's even why Andrew Yang proposed universal basic income during his presidential campaign, because many of us might find ourselves out of work, replaced by robots. It's perhaps why we will own nothing, and they claim we will be happy. But will we be? With us now is Joe Allen. He's the transhumanism editor for Bannon's War Room and author of the new book, Dark Aeon, Transhumanism and the War Against Humanity. Joe, who has a background in both science and theology, says good people are constructing a digital abomination. And though things are dire and terrifying, humanity's salvation is within our grasp. Joe, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Kim, thank you very much. My pleasure.
Okay, so you say that now some people might challenge you on the idea that good people are creating this abomination, because some people say, no, AI is being created by these tech billionaires like Bill Gates and Elon Musk. And we've got guys at the WEF who seem to be ushering this sort of transition into this new era upon us. And these are not good people. In fact, they have ulterior motives. What do you think about that? Why are they good people? Who are the good people?
Well, really, the good people, that quote actually comes from my experience at Boston University working with the Center for Mind and Culture. And these were very good people working on artificial intelligence models to model religious systems and also model people's behavior. I would consider them to be abominations on many levels, but these were good people with good intentions. You mentioned people like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, maybe implied there Klaus Schwab, Yuval Noah Harari, Parag Khanna, people at the World Economic Forum. I am not the angel with the clipboard deciding who is and isn't evil. All you can do is judge by someone's actions or the intentions that they telegraph with their words. I will say this, though, that I do think that the idea that the benefit for humanity that is promised by the World Economic Forum comes at a great cost, a lot of that being one's freedom. And I also think that if you want to put Elon Musk as some sort of foil to those characters, whatever sorts of benefits he's offering comes at the cost of one's humanity. So it's really a deal with the devil either way.
In what way? So how does AI, and are you talking specifically about AI, that would be sort of the deal with the devil that's going to cost us our humanity? What is it
So
exactly?
what I cover for the most part is transhumanism. Transhumanism is simply the philosophy that human beings can be optimized, that our abilities can and should be augmented by technology. And of course, a big part of that is the merging of human beings with machines at various levels. So when Klaus Schwab described the fourth industrial revolution, he defined it of one's physical, digital, and biological identities, or the convergence of the physical, digital, and biological worlds. This is the essence of transhumanism, even if he avoids using such a term. Same with Yuval Noah Harari's work, Homo Deus. It is simply describing transhumanism and posthumanism using new pop coinage. And Elon Musk, holding up artificial intelligence as this tremendous danger, this existential risk that threatens humanity, while at the same time creating artificial intelligence systems. In fact, Tesla has some of the most advanced artificial intelligence systems in the world. And of course, XAI, their intention is to create artificial general intelligence, meaning some sort of superhuman godlike AI. And part of his solution to this existential risk of artificial intelligence, which he is in fact creating, is to use devices such as the Neuralink to merge one's brain. He calls it the intended end product, a whole brain interface that could reach every part of your mind and both read and write onto it. That's the intention. Musk is known for overpromising. All of these technologies are rife with overhype. But the real argument that I make continuously is that the impact of this, the import of this, is that we are being conditioned as the various societies across the world, individuals, and most importantly, civilizationally. Whole civilizations are having their attention directed towards technology as the salvific or transcendent principle. I would say that transhumanism represents a sort of religion of technology, as David Noble would say, and that it is, in fact, one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing religions, and it's a religion that has suffused the most powerful corporations on earth.
Why do you think it's like a religion? Because I've seen like people on the left, for example, during the pandemic, sort of grasped what seemed like religion when it came to the vaccines and there's like a morality, and it was around morality. It was like, do this or else you're a bad person. But I don't know if I see that with tech so much. I don't think I see groups of people saying, embrace tech or you're a bad person. But I do see that with other things.
That is, vaccines are technology, first off, as are masks, really kind of low grade technical device. Also, the contact tracing systems that were rolled out during the pandemic or the pandemic response, those are obviously advanced technologies used for
Okay.
surveillance. And one who, it is, especially in places like, say, Israel, where you had real, those sorts of technologies were pushed, or Singapore, they were pushed more aggressively. You were certainly considered to be a bad person for not subjecting yourself to it. In general, I think that most of the technologies we consider to be invasive, such as, or people like myself and other quasi Luddites, such as a smartphone, uh, more and more. I mean, obviously, in America right now, it's a matter of personal choice. In China, it's a matter of mandate. In fact, oftentimes you're considered a person of interest if you're stopped by the police and you do not have your smartphone on you. So
Mm.
the idea that the same sort of impulse that you're talking about that appeared during the pandemic, that one is not normal unless they are in some way augmented by the biomedical system, that underpins much of what I would call transhumanism or its broader social expression, technocracy, two different things, but very much connected. And the religion element, I think that if you look at my writing and the reporting that we've done at the War Room for the last 2.5 years, a lot of it is my interpretation of it as a replacement for religion, but a lot of it is the self description of those working on this. They see it as a spiritual quest. Sam Altman speaks of it this way. If you look at the writings of some of the newer, more radical thinkers, people like the effective accelerationists, they describe it as a spiritual quest. Ben Goertzel, known for building the AI behind the popular Sophia robot, very famous kind of figurehead for transhumanism, describes it in Buddhist terms. His colleague Hugo de Garis openly describes the creation of what he calls artilects, or what we would call artificial general intelligence, as a religious impulse. So there's no question, this is not simply me projecting that onto them, even if oftentimes it's part of my analysis of it. If I could say one quick thing, Kim, about that too, in the cognitive science of religion, which I think is very informative, even if it's somewhat deadening as a philosophy, in the cognitive science of religion, it's talked about continually that in a kind of post traditional age, in an age of secularism, what we see again and again and again is that the cognitive machinery of the mind that typically would have been harnessed by religion or harnessed religious ideas, or those mechanisms, those psychological mechanisms, are now occupied by more secular, atheistic, and increasingly technological means, so to speak. So that's a real element of it too. I think that the religion of technology, again, as David Noble would describe it, the religion of technology is simply sliding into the vacuum that atheism has opened up.
What do you think the future looks like? I mean, you make a really good argument, and then I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, I mean, what if everything does? I mean, if are we really at risk of being replaced by robots? Do you think that humans really could become second class citizens on Earth, and that robots figure out not only how to replace us, but then they can build more robots? I mean, robots should be able to build other robots, would be my guess at some point, right? AI would be able to replace and almost like procreate itself. So where do you see us headed?
That's certainly the intended trajectory of a lot of these people. For me, I think that it will be something very different than anyone expects because the future almost always is. But you can get some idea of the general contours. When people say, I want to create godlike artificial intelligence that should be deferred to in place of human judgment and human wisdom, you can be sure that they're going to work on and develop some kind of system that will take precedence over certain humans' decisions. When people say, I want to create robots to pretty much do any menial labor, such as Elon Musk with his robot Optimus, it's not clear whether or not he will be completely successful in that, but you can be sure that his projects will move towards replacing some blue collar workers. And definitely when you look at ChatGPT or other large language models, the sort of language based AIs, I think that the intention, the signaled intention to replace uh, journalists, teachers, doctors, lawyers, whether or not that happens in some sort of totalizing sense, that the future is unknown. Is the end result of these technologies? That's all unknown. But what we do know is that is their intention. And so, to some extent, to the extent these technologies can be developed or already have been developed, you can be sure that some human beings are definitely to be replaced and are being replaced right now. One
Yeah.
of the more disturbing things that I see is this push. I think it's great, the push towards homeschooling, and I think it's very understandable in the current climate. But alongside that is this push for one-on-one AI tutoring. And this is not just some kind of left-wing thing. In fact, one of the arguments I make continually is that this is not transhumanism, techno-fetishism, futurism, even post-humanism. This isn't some sort of left-wing thing. It's not some sort of globalist thing. The tendency for human beings to elevate technology as the highest power on earth is beyond any ideology. And so we hear a lot of mothers, and I think that it's to me another one of those pacts with the digital devil, talking about educating their children using AI technologies that will completely transform the way in which culture is transmitted from generation to generation. One last point on that, looking at the future, I think that all of these technologies are undoubtedly going to have tremendous impacts, but they're not going to have impacts across the board. It won't be uniform. It will be unevenly distributed, just as it is now. And so you will have some portions of society that stay behind, so to speak, some portions of society wherein the infrastructure continues to crumble and poverty is something that could kill you. And then on the other hand, I think that you're going to see other sectors, particularly among the elites and those who have signed on to the sorts of agendas at the World Economic Forum, they will rush full on ahead with this, and they will adopt these technologies as much as possible, as much as they seem useful, which I think will be quite a bit. So one of the things that Hugo de Garis talks about, and he himself is a transhumanist, he himself built robots, and he talks about this sort of separation between those who I will call them cyborgs. He would maybe describe it differently, but those who have attached themselves to the technologies, who are altering their bodies by way of advanced technology, be it phenotypic or genotypic, those who have pretty much resigned themselves to the idea that artificial intelligence is superior, and then those who have not, and that they will basically function like two different races, or they will function like two different, completely different species. And this is certainly, he's not alone in that projection. I am not the only lunatic who thinks that something like that could be possible. And I also think that the ideology behind it, whether or not it's actually some sort of biological speciation, there is already a cultural speciation between, say, first world countries and third world countries, or what you would say would be civilized peoples and savage peoples. And that divide is significant enough that throughout the last 3 centuries, we saw that the civilized peoples completely eradicated the third world people with fairly primitive technologies compared to what we have today. So I anticipate that if these technologies move forward, that something like the darkest predictions that are made both by those who are kind of Luddites and fearful and by those who want to see this go forward, I think something like that is very, very likely to come to pass. It will be a dark eon, so to speak.
I mean, you bring up some really great points that I'd never really thought about before. The fact that, yeah, there are some ideas out there, people pushing for AI to replace human decision making and allowing the AI to be the ultimate decider. I mean, they think, some people imagine a world where they're judges, and it's like, oh, well, then we don't have the bias of a judge if you go up in front of AI, and then AI decides your fate. I mean, that is putting an immense amount of power in the hands of a robot, in the hands of technology. And it is putting them godlike, above the human, telling the human, this is what's going to happen to you. This is your future now. And AI decides that rather than humans. And there's definitely a push for that, because there's definitely a faction of people, and I believe it as well, that there are serious bias in the court systems. And, we see it every day in the news. The DOJ is going one way, or and so there could be this push coming from both sides, actually, to, well, let's let AI decide, and then we won't have all of this partisan, back and forth civil war that we're almost reeling into. So that's really frightening when you put it in the perspective of, now we're putting AI above humans, and there's going to be a push for that, and people are going to be championing that. They're going to want that. That is really frightening. It's also really scary when you think about the fact that, the population is growing. The Earth's population is just growing and growing. And so if there is AI that replaces many of the jobs, what does happen? And you're right, when it's the lowest on the totem pole, rather than the conquerors, the first world people going after the third world and conquering in the olden sense, where they'd maybe land on their shores and eradicate them somehow through warfare, there would be a different way of going about that potentially. Like maybe, not having it, you'd kind of whittle away. When people don't have any purpose in life, when they don't have a job, when they don't know what their being is about, we see them reel into degeneracy, essentially, right? We see them go into crime, drugs, alcohol. They got nothing else to do but just drink their sorrows away and commit crime. And then that would be a way to essentially eradicate the lowest of the low, throw them in jail, don't allow them to, to have resources. They die off. That's just really dystopian. I mean, when you bring all this up, this is frightening. So, okay, you've got this book coming out at the end of the month, at the end of this month, Dark Aeon, Transhumanism and the War Against Humanity. Do you give us hope? Are you going to give us hope on how we can fight back?
There is there's a light at the end of that tunnel. Yes. I think also that look at all the struggles that people have gone through, our ancestors have gone through, other people's ancestors have gone through over the course of history, going back to the caves. We have always faced horrific challenges. So whether one is excited about these technologies, optimistic about them, wants to adopt them as rapidly as possible and become something like this 21st century future man, or whether one wants to remain something like a human being, I think that whatever side you stand on, that you can't look at the future with a paralyzing fear. You have to go forward with the attitude that you and your values and your intentions and your will win the day. Doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen, but I also don't think that the extreme predictions of these technologists are necessarily going to come to pass. And if they do, they won't necessarily come to pass in a universal fashion so that every single person is somehow forced to adopt it. We'll see. In a place like China, you see adoption of various technologies like this, that they are mandated and they're used for social control. In America, the flavor is a bit different, but the same temptations to use these technologies for psychological control, population control, this here too. It's happening here too. So I think that human freedom is really the central value that I'm championing, even if I'm not pushing it as some sort of libertarian, which I'm not. I think that human freedom in the face of these smothering technologies has to be preserved. It has to be carried forward like a torch in a storm. And hopefully I provide some tools and a bit of a roadmap for people who might not know about some of these technologies, or if they do, might not be aware of the philosophical and even religious intentions that really ride behind them. And that goes from Google to Facebook to Elon Musk's endeavors, and of course the World Economic Forum as a kind of mouthpiece for these people.
Well, you brought up some really good points. So definitely, I know you're an expert in transhumanism, and I do think people need to pay more attention to this because this could be the future warfare that we're fighting as humans, not against one another, but sort of against one another. Those who want to develop this and force it on us, and those of us who want to retain our humanity. So thank you so much, Joe, for being here. The link to his book is down below, and you can pre-order it. Dark Eon: Transhumanism and the War Against Humanity. Joe Allen, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kim.